this was a bioweapon. CIA confirms COVID leaked from Wuhan lab, exposes CIA bribe. And CIA confirms this the date that Donald Trump gets sworn into office for the second time. This is, of course, what the leak was the first time, trying to stop. Right? Yeah. Bombshell emails show that Fauci aide used his personal Gmail to intentionally hide discussions about COVID origins and would delete anything incriminating. Well. The guy who's investigating Dr. Fauci and the COVID origins says that Fauci behaved illegally. I will delete anything I don't want to see in the New York Times, the Fauci advisor previously told Republicans. Wow. This brings us to the next major event in the COVID military ops, the George Floyd riots. People were starting to see that COVID leaked from a lab. Donald Trump said it all throughout. He never once wavered. It came from China. It came from China. It came from their lab. Trump said again and again and again. Carolyn Levitt now in term 2.0 saying COVID leaked from a lab in China. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. So what's going to happen next? We're not sure, but we do know this, that there should be major justice for the victims of COVID, and they are suing Dr. Fauci, EcoHealth Alliance, and the monsters who actually created this virus. The families affected are suing. Now, this, of course, would be a civil charge, not a federal one, and so Joe Biden's stupid little pardon of Dr. Fauci wouldn't go anywhere here.
That infamous Wuhan lab of virology. It alleges EcoHealth failed to ensure critical safety measures were in place, allowing the virus to spread.
It was abnormally dangerous. There's strict liability in New York, which basically means you do it and somebody gets hurt, you're liable. And hence the reason for the case.
We reached out to EcoHealth Alliance. They did give us the statement saying we cannot comment on pending litigation. However, it's important to note that the bat coronavirus research conducted by EcoHealth Alliance at that Wuhan lab could not have started the pandemic. So
just keep saying things. It's amazing. You always know somebody's lying when they just state something and provide zero argument or fact basis for it. It's just pure outrage and screaming. Okay, prove it, dumbasses. We really hope somebody's held accountable. Dr. Fauci straight up saying he's going to create a virus and he's going to destroy the Trump administration. I mean, he said it right before Trump gets sworn in. At what point do you put the data together and just say, nope, these guys are, charge them at the Hague, right? Charge them in the International Criminal Court. That's what really needs to do. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe if you think Dr. Fauci should go to prison.
So they took the money that Cheney gave them, $2.2 billion, and they funneled it through NIH. And it all went through Anthony Fauci. That's when they started doing all this gain of function.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. Here is our solemn promise to you. We will be professional noticers on this channel. We'll continue the noticing, the pattern recognition, and the calling out of very mysterious and deeply dark clips like this one. I don't call many clips historic on this channel, but this is absolutely a historic clip where Dr. Fauci, on the eve of President Trump being sworn in for his first administration, promises there will be a surprise pandemic. Well, that's crazy. I've never heard anybody do this to any president. Yet here's Dr. Fauci.
Is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
And a surprise outbreak? How can you say that with such certitude? Unless, of course, you were the one creating the outbreak yourself. Maybe this is why Dr. Fauci, who's been on your TV and done hundreds of thousands of on-camera interviews, you never saw the guy shake, right? You've seen the guy on camera. He was ubiquitous for years. Here's the one time Dr. Fauci is literally left shaking when Rand Paul asked him the direct questions about the laboratory experiments he was doing in China with gain of function.
I want to understand that if you look at those viruses, and that's judged by qualified virologists and evolutionary biologists, those viruses are molecularly impossible
No one's
to
saying
result
they are. No
in
one's saying those viruses
SARS-CoV-2.
caused the pandemic.
Senator Paul,
We're saying they are gain-of-function viruses because they were
They're not.
animal viruses that became more transmissible in human, and you funded it.
And
Won't admit the truth.
And you
Senator
implying
Paul, your time has expired, and I will allow witnesses who come.
That's what we call being over the target. Now, President Trump, for his part in all of this, and we're going to get to this amazing whistleblower from the highest possible echelons of our public health administration, who is now throwing Dr. Fauci directly under the bus. Trump was never fooled. And this is very important. There's a lot of people who criticize Donald Trump for what happened during COVID. Trump was never fooled. He always told you the truth.
Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
China.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate.
China is the China virus. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's somebody who would know about infectious diseases. He's the former Center for Infectious Disease director. His name's Robert Redfield. He testified before Congress. He's the best possible voice on these things. And of course, he was in charge of the CDC when COVID broke out. And he said immediately, this is a man-made virus. Because molecularly, it's impossible for this to be a zoonotic transmission virus. It's clear it was man-made. And it was clear that Dr. Fauci, now that we have the receipts, was funding the creation of these viruses. Why was he doing that? And where was he getting the funding? Well, he was doing it because it was banned from creating these viruses in stateside, because he kept leaking. The labs that he was creating viruses in kept leaking. This is well-recorded history. So Obama, of all people, actually banned gain-of-function research here in America. So they moved it offshore to Ukraine, to China, places with a little more loose rules, right? A little more susceptible to American dollars, forcing them to do things. And where to get the money? Well, Dr. Fauci was put in charge of a bioweapons program in the aftermath of 9/11 and something called the Patriot Act. That's where Dr. Fauci worked with the CIA and the Pentagon to create superviruses to stop the next pandemic. Oh, wow. Well, who benefited from the COVID pandemic? The people that wanted Trump out of office. What do they end up doing? They end up building their own virus. And now that same guy who was in charge of the CDC, so we should listen to him, right? Robert Redfield, says COVID did come from the Wuhan laboratory. The US and UK stayed silent to protect their own spies in China. World's leading expert reveals bombshell evidence of top secret cover-up that cost millions of lives. Robert Redfield, the infectious disease expert who headed the key US public health body when the pandemic erupted, has accused American and British intelligence agencies of orchestrating a clandestine campaign to shut down concerns over possible laboratory leak in China. In an exclusive interview with the Mail on Sunday, the world-renowned virologist says he's now 100% convinced that COVID-19 was the result of scientists becoming infected and carrying out high-risk experiments to boost the infectivity of bat viruses amid low biosecurity laboratories in Wuhan. He believes that Dr. Fauci, a former presidential advisor and one of America's most influential doctors, worked with the heads of the US and UK research funding bodies to push now debunked theory of natural transmission from animals on the sale of the Wuhan wet markets. You remember that? They said, oh, it was a pangolin. They eat bats in China, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The purpose, he claims, was to cover up their support for the controversial gain-of-function research, which was banned in the United States from 2014 to 2017. Any dissenting scientists were labeled as conspiracy theorists. Redfield also fears security services secretly pulled a lot of strings to protect their agencies inside of China's military-linked laboratories, pointing out Fauci's ties with intelligence since 2014, running the $38 billion U.S. biosecurity program. Oh, wow. So he was in charge of creating bioweapons. The role of the intelligence community is much deeper than meets the eye. It was so effective. I think it was not just the Americans. The British had been involved too. Intelligence agencies spent a lot of time and energy infiltrating Chinese research programs, including military programs. They were trying to protect their assets and, as far as possible, so they did not want any investigation into the laboratory. The remarkable 4-hour interview, the former director of the Center for Disease Control, spent 2 decades serving as scientist in the military. He called Dr. Fauci the father of the virus, for a long-standing promotion of gain-of-function research in which organisms' genes are altered to boost infectivity and other characteristics for future outbreaks. Said he believes that the lab leak occurred between mid-August and September 2019 when scientists in the Wuhan Institute of Virology became infected and then spread the virus around the city. Argues that China's leaders covered up the outbreak from mid-September when their military took full control of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and on the same day took virus databases offline and ordered a new ventilation system. Suspects the October 2019 Military World Games, when thousands of athletes converged on Wuhan, played a significant role in spreading the disease worldwide. Reveals he received fake anthrax and death threats after saying he used suspected lab leak, including from a leading U.S. scientist who told him to kill himself. Now calls for misconduct investigation into what he says Fauci's cabal of international scientists who branded backers of the lab leak theory as conspiracy theorists despite evidence emerging that secretly, privately held similar concerns. These explosive claims by Redfield, a prominent AIDS researcher before he became the first virologist to leave the CDC, with a network of domestic international offices, including one in China. So Redfield is the man. He obviously was in charge of the CDC. He's straight up throwing Fauci under the bus now, calling him the father of the virus, going directly after the cabal that created the virus and then stopped people from talking about it, and stating directly that it was the CIA who was in charge of the management and mitigation of this. I am now 100% convinced that COVID resulted from a lab leak in Wuhan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do we know about the CIA? We know that the CIA bribed their own scientists. Trust the science. Yeah, really, trust the bags of cash given to scientists. Trust their own scientists to come to the conclusion that it actually didn't leak from a lab. It's incredible. 6 of the 7 members of the CIA COVID discovery team were given significant monetary incentives to change their position, according to a whistleblower. The CIA ultimately refused to make a formal assessment on COVID origins. As soon as Trump gets into office, then they switch their assessment to say it did come from a lab. And Dr. Fauci allegedly visited the CIA on a black site operation because clearly